Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Autumn is Here. I'm your host, Francine Crawford, and today we have an interesting segment. We have a end-of-life doula that we're going to speak to and learn more about her services. So I'm going to introduce to you now Adriene Jenik. Hi, Adriene. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Francine. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad that you are a part of Autumn is Here. We're here sharing information and different things about senior living, senior life, caregivers, things like that. And we want people to have information so they have choices. You know, sometimes people don't even know the choices and options that they may have. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a 58-year-old woman. I live in the desert in California, and I'm an artist and also an educator. And then I also serve my communities as an end-of-life doula.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's get right into it because I'm not so familiar with this. So I'm excited to hear about it. So tell me, what is an end-of-life doula?
Sure. So some people in your audience might be familiar with a birth doula, or the idea of a doula as a person during the birth process. And an end-of-life doula is essentially a support person for that end-of-life process. So we, in our role, support the person who's actively dying, but also people that are planning or thinking about death, or just wanting support to consider what their options are, want someone to be able to speak with. We essentially support everything that's a non-medical part of death. So emotional components, spiritual components, legacy components, if you need help preparing, all those aspects, and also support communities and families that are working to support their loved one who's passing, because many people find themselves in that situation and they don't know what to do, or there's conflict in the family about what to do. And so I'm there to support. I work with people that invite me in to help support them in the process to ensure that they have a death, a transition that is dignified, that is something that brings their community and family together, and that also helps the family and community grieve after they've passed.
Okay. So do people just get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with you? Are you a part of an organization? Are you just solo?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so I am part of an organization that's called the National End-of-Life Doula Association, NEDA. There's also an international component. And I'm a certified end-of-life doula, but people can perform this service. It's actually a service that's like millennia old. You may even know people that serve in that way and have for a long time. It's only recently become like a bit more professionalized. But some people in our communities have the capacity to do that, have the capacity to be present with death and not be overly emotional, be really able to like think through things and be really present in a different way. And so that role has existed for like as long as humans have existed, right? Because death is a part of our life as humans. But recently it's become kind of a professionalized role. People do get certified. I got certified so that it wouldn't seem weird when I offered my services to people that weren't just my close friends or family, that it wouldn't seem odd. And the way that people find their way to me is normally through word of mouth, and in our community. I also support and help run occasionally a death cafe. Those are meeting spaces where people in communities all over the world come and just speak about death, because as you know, there's not many places in our culture that people can just feel comfortable speaking about their thoughts. A lot of times it's even superstitious, to think about it, or people are afraid that what they're thinking or feeling is weird or odd. And so these are just spaces that people can come speak about that. So some people meet me that way. And a lot of times it's word of mouth, and also people suggesting that someone talk to me, that they've either worked with me themselves or they know someone that's worked with me, and then they just find their way to me. Yeah.
Okay. So give me a little bit about some of the things that you may do, some services that you may do.
Sure, sure. So the one thing is that when the person, like one of the principles for end of life doulas is that if people don't want to die alone, that people should not die alone. And so we really support vigil, like a end of life vigil, where someone's always with the person who's passing. And of course, that's not just something that a single person can do. It needs, a community of support. So I participate and then also kind of help to organize that if someone's passing. I also help people do death planning, what that is. We don't have control over our deaths. But if you think about it and make some plans, you're more likely to have maybe some of those things. But that's not just automatically going to happen. It takes some planning. You have to think about what kind of support is there, what needs you might have. So I help work out those things. You might have also, so in the death planning, I also work with you through thinking about what relationships you might want to have healed. Or that might need to be healed or resolved before your death. We talk about spiritual practice and what your spiritual relationship is to death and what kind of spiritual support you might need, as you're dying or just as you're thinking about dying. Legacy work. So some people have things, I really want to make sure I get that done, before I die. And so I support people with some accountability and with some kind of checking in. So I have doulies, I call them, that I work with, and they're at very different points. A number of them are elderly and are really facing death, and they want to have a conscious death. And in some cases, they can't speak comfortably with their children or don't have anyone to speak with about what their needs and desires are. And so we just talk it out, and then I reflect back to them, what they want. And then we think about what's a plan, what are some steps to get to that place. Other people in California, we have medical assistance in dying, which if you know that you're going to die and you want to do that on your own terms, you have the capacity to get medication from a physician to do that. There's a number of steps to go through. So some people have questions about that. So I counsel people about that. Some people are paralyzed in grief or fear of death. And so just talking with someone about death can help kind of release some of that tension so that they can go on with their life, to have a better life, because they're so profoundly paralyzed by their fear of death or their grief over, or trauma that they've experienced around death. I also, I talk with people also about all different options, because people a lot of times don't know, aren't really sure what they want to have happen to their body, and they're thinking about different options. And so I'm up to date on all in my county and in my state, and where I work with people on all the, possibilities of green burials or different kinds of possibilities that are just, ones that are regularly known. So I keep up to date on all of that. Wow. And it's different. Every death and every person is different what they need. So I just was counseling someone the other day who is an artist, and she wants to do a performance that she really releases all of her. She has a lot of trauma around death, and she releases all of that. And so I'm just going to be a witness for that, because it's not. Yeah. So it's an odd job. and I basically do what I listen to what people need. And if I can provide what they need, then I'm there to support them. A lot of times it's also supporting the family and the community, because death is something I'm sure you've seen. It can either bring a community or family closer together, or it can break them apart. Right. And so a lot of times the family wants to support the person dying, but they don't know how to do that. And so I help the family or the community, be able to support that person.
Okay, so people come to you that are not dying, but may know somebody or, want to know how do they approach or death and talk to the person.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, or like children might come to me. Children might come to me. They don't know how to speak with their parent. They know that they need to, but they're afraid to. They don't know how to bring it up. Or maybe I have one family I work with that the siblings were all fighting, and the mother was wanting to, really have peace. And so I kind of just sat with all of them, and we sort of talked about like what the mother wanted, and what the children were able to support, and how they could think through how they could support each other to support their mother. So some of it is really just kind of being present, and it sounds weird, but like kind of holding a space, sort of like what you are in your podcast, making a space for people to feel comfortable to speak about things that are very difficult to speak about.
Okay. So is it, do you find that it's a religious thing, or more people in certain religions come to you or talk about it, or is it easier for them? Or is it just, people who don't have a religion maybe, and they don't really connect with it and understand death? Like, do you find that? I'm not sure. I'm just asking if that's a possibility. Do you find that in your services?
Yeah, what I've found is that it's really all different people, because some people may feel comfortable in their faith community. They may have somebody they can go to there, but other people, they don't feel as comfortable with these kind of thoughts, and other people, as you know, don't really have a faith community. During COVID, it was hard for people to access support for grief, and also, like just community in the face of that. And so I really got quite a few people I started to work with that were from all different faiths. For sure, faith community is another place that people might find support, and really strong support, especially in relationship to their own beliefs, their particular beliefs about death and what happens after death.
Wow. So how do you stay strong in this? Because I'm sure that some cases are harder than others, and just the idea of someone dying and watching them die or whatever, it can be depressing or can be heavy on you. So how do you do it?
Thank you for that question. It's a really good one. So I have a regular meditation practice, so that just keeps me kind of regulated and connected, kind of to myself, and it creates some kind of spaciousness so that I'm not, so that I have a clearer mind, and my spirit is like open, and my heart is open, like as I enter into a situation, whatever that is. I am part of a 12 Steps program. So that's a fellowship program as well that, kind of is, supports, me in being just healthy and understanding, like, what my boundaries are. That's really important to, to both be of service, but also be really clear about what I can do and what I can't do, And then, I have a really close connection with my spiritual connection with my higher power, and I just keep that very alive. And I take lots of breaks, and I try to really take care of myself. But for sure, that caregiver role, the role of support role is. I make sure I have support around myself, when I'm going out for a vigil, or I know I'm going to be up all night with someone, or, whatever those situations are, I make sure that I have the support I need. And sometimes, I need a lot of rest afterwards, because it can be very heavy, but it also, I don't know if you've ever been with the person as they're transitioning from life to death. It's very powerful and very moving, and it feels like a real honor to me to be present. And so I actually, feel like very purposeful and very and peaceful, like in that situation. Yeah.
Okay. So are you received well in the medical industry?
So as I said, it's a really new role,
Okay.
or a new role that people are becoming aware of. A lot of what we do used to be done within hospice, but when hospice got more kind of institutionalized and regimented as it went to Medicare, sadly, hospice people are not always able to perform all of these other duties. And so there's a way that we kind of, are people that are able to kind of support hospice. So I do end up working kind of across hospice and the medical situation. It depends. If someone's in the hospital, then I'm there. And people are generally, they don't really understand it, but when you explain it, they kind of get it, because they know that people do need support and they're not necessarily able to provide it. The hospice people are really often very grateful that someone's there, really able to support the family. And, the main thing is to not get in the way and to assure them that there's nothing I'm doing that's medical in any way. I don't even give advice about medical things. Even if someone asks me, I say, there's other people you can, ask about that. And I make sure that they're connected with good medical advice, that they can have. So I find that there's not really tension there as long as I'm really clear about like what my role is and that I'm clear about what their role is. Yeah.
So what is your, how did you study for this? Is it a course that's given in a university? How do you study for this if you want to be a doula?
Yeah, so there's so right now it's the certification process it's not like official, like there's no official license. It's a little bit of a Wild West. So there's lots of different ways that people can do it. And what I want to make sure that your audience hears is that for sure, some people are just very natural in this role and they have that capacity to do, and they don't need to be certified. If someone wants them to do it, if their community wants them to do it, if they're already doing it within their community, there's no requirement at this point that you be certified. The certification I received was from the Conscious Dying Institute. It was 60 hours. It was like often they initially did their certification for nurses who were also working across hospice. And so it was 60 hours of like continuing ed training. So it was very intensive. And I'm really glad that I did it in particular because we had the opportunity to talk about all different faith perspectives on death and dying, and also go through like a whole day about like the real process of death, of the body breaking down, so that I can really be, kind of clear about that and aware of that, and, assist people with that. There's many other things in the certification process that feel really supportive of my role now. But I was performing this role before I got certified. I came up during the AIDS crisis. And I live in New York City and I'm queer myself, and my community, there was lots of young people that were dying and in really like horrible, sad ways, and their communities and sadly were shunning them. Sometimes, not always. And so many of us just found ourselves in the place of being all of a sudden at the bedsides of people that were dying and needed support. And so I began to do that, to just be there. I didn't know what a death doula was. I didn't think of myself as a death doula. I was just there to support, because I knew that people shouldn't die alone if they don't want to. And also I saw that some people couldn't handle it, and I noticed that like, I was okay. I was able to be present, and able to be thoughtful and able to be an advocate for them and what they wanted and listen to them and just be calmly present. And then I had that chance to do that with other friends and family over the years. And when I first heard the term death doula or end of life doula, I was like, oh, I think that's what I am. I think that's what I've been doing. And then after a while, because I was busy with other things, I did end up deciding, oh, I should get certified because I feel really called to do this, like in a larger way.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, and where you got certified, it sounds like you said that this is something that had existed. This certification existed for people who were studying in hospice and things like that. So it's something that was already existing that you took that class.
Yes. And then there's a class at the University of Vermont that's online. There's a wonderful person, Alutha Arthur, who runs a program called Going with Grace that has a training program. So there's many different training programs that are out there, and some are very much more short, abbreviated. Like I said, there's no like official license right now overseeing it, like there are for many other, like there would be for a chaplain, for instance, or something. So it's a support role, and there's lots of different options of how you might be certified.
Oh, okay. Well, when you are going through this, you don't change, like you don't give advice in the illness or anything like that.
So that my role is to support the person that's dying to have the best death possible. But in doing that, all kinds of things come up, and so I need to use my wisdom, my discernment, my just, ability. Sometimes I'm creating rituals to help people, say goodbye and come together. It's different. Every single death is really different.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting to have that option. Autumn is here is about preparing, and sometimes we don't think that preparing for death is an option or something that we should do. We kind of shy away from it. We know we're getting older. We know we're growing older. We know we're deteriorating, but we don't face that we can plan for our death and our end of days. So it's really good that you're doing this, and that that there is this service that's out there for people, and you're comforting people. And that's really good. I just wonder if there's anything else that you would like to say to the audience, or anything that, maybe is a myth that you want to dispel, or if anything that you want to, programs or anything that you want to talk about that you can share with people to make them understand a little better. Please share.
Sure. I'd just say that as difficult as it is to look at, death is part of life, and it can be a very meaningful part of how we live our lives, how we exit our lives. And there's so much to be taught during that time. There's so much like love and celebration and closeness. And for me, I feel like it's a threshold that's the bookend to birth. And there's so much celebration around birth. And death is really kind of pushed aside. And really, I want to encourage your audience to, really just take a little bit of time to, to really think through, like, well, what would I want? What do I want the people that I love, what do I want them to experience during that time? And to just have courage, and listen to the voice inside of them to step up into that space and not be, afraid of that, because it is actually very beautiful and important place to be present for, and it can make a big difference in your grieving. Able to be present with someone as they're passing. And yeah, for sure. Don't, like, any questions people have, if you have my communication, I'm happy for you to post that. And I'd be happy to speak with anyone else about anything else. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. I watched a few episodes, and it's really valuable, and really appreciate what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just so happy that you were able to be on this show, because I really believe that there's a lot of people that could use this information, and that don't really know the details of it. They may have heard of it, but they don't know the details, and that service is here, and they may not feel comfortable asking about it. So maybe there's something that you said that make them feel a little bit more comfortable with asking or talking about the end of life, which is something I think you're right. We should, celebrate. We've been here all this time, and, at the end, we should celebrate it. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being here. And I will definitely put your information out, and hopefully somebody will learn something from this and be more comfortable with growing older and getting prepared. Sometimes we just let things happen, and we can prepare some things. We can't, we don't know when we're going to pass away, but we do know that we can have a better quality of life if we prepare for it. So that's what this is about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Francine. Really great. Thank you for your service. I really appreciate you having me on.
Okay. All right. Well, good night. And I appreciate your time.
All right.
All right.